The war in Ukraine. Today I will present to you 12 blunders of Putin, 12 black watches of Russia. We will talk about why Putin's Russia is losing the war with Ukraine and why Western countries in the free world are massively helping the Ukrainian people in their struggle for freedom. But before that, I want to warn you that beyond Putin's mistakes or blunders, which have caused both the loss of tens of thousands of Ukrainian or Russian lives and the refuge of more than 10 million civilians, paradoxically, Russia is waging a war in Ukraine against the West on the West's money. And the moment we talk, every day, more than $900 million are flowing from the West to Putin's coffers, and only the moment of Russia's total decoupling from the money coming from the countries of the European Union will coincide with the chances of stopping the war in Ukraine in the medium term. The attacks from three directions, wasting resources. From the north from Belarus to Kiev, from the east from the Donbass area, and southeastern Crimea, Mariupol, was poorly calibrated, was wasted forces on a front of over 1,000 kilometers. Russian troops, scattered, had no chance of success and due to the lack of professionalism, dilettantism of Russian soldiers. Recruits as cannon fodder. At the beginning of the invasion there is innumerable evidence that Russian soldiers with insufficient or rudimentary military training were easily thrown into battle, this leading to huge loss of life. Eloquent cases of prisoners rather than children rather than fighters. Tragico-comic events worthy of satire in which Russian soldiers present themselves at Ukrainian police stations to demand fuel or tanks, or armored vehicles abandoned in the fields, towed by the heroics of now Ukrainian tractors are just as many examples. Beyond all these details, unfortunately the carnage to which young people under the age of 20 have been subjected are caused by the wrong calculations of the Kremlin. The three-day blitzkrieg has transformed in more than 3 months, over 100 days, and the chances of seeing an end of the conflagration in the near future are not visible. Putin's miscalculations and the unprofessionalism of the Russian intelligentsia in presenting the reality of the Ukrainian army and the state of mind in Ukraine led to the disaster in the early days of the war. Basically, Putin's FSB has misinformed Russia's state leadership and military, in addition to the fact that much of the money intended for the propaganda and brainwashing of Ukrainians has been stolen by prominent FSB members responsible for hybrid warfare in Ukraine. Frustrated by the impotence of the Russian army, Putin orders the attack against Ukrainian civilian targets, resulting in countless war crimes, entire localities being shaved from the face of the earth, together being caught civilian dwellings, school, hospitals or kindergartens. There are a lot of similarities to the Russian orchestrated massacres in Syria and Ukraine, in Bucha, Chernihiv, Mariupol, where Putin shaved entire neighborhoods off the face of the earth to scare and intimidate the combatants. If in Syria, after the Aleppo massacre, they went, in Ukraine, the discovery of the massacres of Bucha, Borodyansk, Chernihiv, Mariupol, they did nothing but to fierce the Ukrainian resistance against the invasion. The shortage of food, fuels and equipment is caused by the frequent interruption of the Russian supply lines that have been and are being attacked incessantly by the Ukrainian army. Basically, the Russians did not have a moment to breathe, being moved from the northern front, from the Kiev region, directly to the Donbass. Underestimating the will and heroism of the Ukrainian army that was and continues to be supplied with modern, state-of-the-art military equipment and installations. Images of Ukrainian troops equipped with Javelin or Stinger missiles, which shoot down helicopters, turn tanks, armored planes or even warships into scrap metal, are eloquent. The cruiser Moskva, Russia's flagship, estimated at $800 million, is the most resounding and costly loss for Russia so far. Russia has also lost over 100 aircraft, 80 helicopters, 1,200 tanks or 2,000 armored vehicles. But the biggest loss is the more than 25,000 lives and 60,000 wounded, many of them maimed for life. Underestimating the effects of economic sanctions that dig deep into the financial power needed for a long-term war, as well as the impossibility of producing new equipment due to the embargo imposed by the free world on Russia. So far Russia has lost more than $50 billion spent in the war, and by the end of the year it will lose around $150 billion more of the sudden collapse of the GDP estimated at up to 18%. The oligarchs, technically called Siloviki, the Russian elite that began to rebel, some of them being poisoned, thrown from the height or even executed with the family. This is grinding Russia from within, and Putin's regime can't help but feel the shock. The threat of a nuclear holocaust on the free world and especially Britain, or the threat of Finland if it joins NATO, has had boomerang effects against Putin, with the English increasingly sending weapons to Ukraine, with Harpoon missiles recently arriving capable of sinking the entire Russian fleet from the Black Sea. And Finland, unhindered, has submitted its candidacy to NATO unhindered. Russia's international isolation has not seen such a moment since the nuclear missile crisis in the Bay of Pigs, Cuba. Images of massacres, robberies, information about rapes, even of a one-year-old baby, went around the world. Nothing will be able to wash away the image of these barbarities and decades of sins, because, living in the digital age, the image of atrocities has been possible from everywhere. For the first time in a war of this magnitude, the ugly and demonic face of the war was seen by all of humanity, connected not only through television but also on billions of social media accounts. The blockade against Ukrainian ports, which makes it impossible to export cereals, with serious effects for global stability and a possible famine in the area of poor countries, and the estimates of some analysts that millions of people could starve this year, is another blunder of proportions. Another reason for involving the free world in the weakening of Russia and the unblocking of Ukraine's ports as quickly as possible. The deportation of refugees and the mistreatment of Ukrainian prisoners only serve to further provoke the repulsion and fierceness with which the West is helping Ukraine. There are estimates that more than 500,000 Ukrainians, of whom 200,000 children would be deported or are in the process of being deported to remote areas of Russia, such as in the Bolshevik era. Weapons, equipment and aid worth more than $7 billion had already been sent to Ukraine during the 3 months of the war. Another package of over $50 billion, of which the largest contribution is of the United States, over $43 billion, composes the new lend and lease granted to Ukraine. Thank you for following me to the end. If you found my video interesting, do not forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and press the bell to be notified when I upload new materials, which I promise you will be more and more interesting. In the next episode, 24 striking similarities of his wars by Putin in Syria and Ukraine.